going through the new exclusive right to sell contract that is affiliated with the Dayton Board of Realtors. I'll kind of run through this. One of the things to reference are the line numbers on the left. That'll give you an idea on where we are in explaining it. It is a 5-page document. Some differences, not too bad. At the top in the bold, please be advised broker commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. Obviously, your seller is reading everything, so this is obviously something that's intended for them. These commissions or fees may be paid by the seller, the buyer, the landlord, the tenant, or a third party, or by sharing or splitting the fees and commissions between brokers. That's coming out of House Bill 466 that just passed and is going into law soon. So let's start on line number one. Line number one, it's an exclusive right to sell made on some day of some month in 2024 or some year thereafter. The seller is going to show up in line two. Again, if it's something like a corporation or an LLC, you would put something like Acme Widgets LLC, care of the person who can sign. So keep in mind, as always, corporations cannot sign for themselves. Only members and officers can sign for companies. So keep that in mind. On line number three, that is the mailing address for the person in number two. That's not always the same address that you're going to see down in line 18, but most of the time we do see that being the same. So line 4 is RE/MAX Alliance. Line 5 is the address of your RE/MAX Alliance office. And then it's important to note lines 5 through 13. So the seller represents and warrants that the following. A, the seller is not bound by any other exclusive representation agreement for the real estate described herein. B, that the persons or the entities named above and executing this contract represent all parties or entities who own any portion of the real estate described herein. And C, the signator or signatories below are all of the title owners, and each has or have full authority to enter into this contract and shall provide to the broker any and all documentation reasonably requested to verify the existence of any seller that is an entity, and or to verify the authority of any and all signers acting on behalf of such entity. If the seller is a natural person who is acting on behalf of a trust, estate, or other entity who is married to someone who is not a title owner, the seller's spouse must also execute the deed of conveyance to the buyer, which happens at closing. The seller represents and warrants that the following individuals listed in line 13 is or all of a non-owning spouse of a seller that he or she or they have agreed to execute the deed of conveyance. So if John Doe's name is up here in line 2, and Jane Doe is a spouse, but if it has no ownership rights, you would put Jane Doe down in 13 and 14. So that is that section. So bringing number 1 or line 15 to the top. Line 15 talks about the property that we're selling. So this is where you would put the street number, the lot number, any details, and any and all parcel numbers. It's important to note the parcel numbers should be in there. Don't get caught in a mistake of needing to put a parcel number and you exclude it. Line 19, this shall include land together with all buildings, improvements, fixtures, and items affixed or wired hereto, and all appurtenant rights and privileges therein, but shall exclude the following. And then you'll note right after it, it says no exclusions. This is left blank. So you would talk about those things, but if it's left blank, then obviously um, it's meant to be no exclusions. So down in line 26, so this is a new change. I don't see this being utilized a lot, but it says, if checked, this contract shall only apply to the following buyers, including their spouses, assignees, or any other person or entity acting on behalf or benefit in which they may have beneficiary ownership interests. So you would put in line 28 and check the box for a contract that only applies to a particular person. I don't think now if you want to debate the point with me offline, I'm happy to talk to you about it, but I believe the best way to handle somebody like that has exclusive would be to fill out this listing agreement and then come back with the exclusive right to sell contract addendum and make that affiliated with that buyer. And again, when you get comfortable with these forms, some of the logic is going to kind of click in and make more sense. But I don't see that being the case where that's being used. But if you run into a good example, I'd love to hear it. Line 29, seller authorized broker to list and to market real estate in any manner, location, medium, and or as otherwise determined by the broker. This shall include, but is not limited to, placement in any MLS, notwithstanding or foregoing, the broker shall not engage in the following. So it's not applicable if you leave it blank. But let's say this seller doesn't want to do something. Maybe I'm trying not to say sign and lockbox because that shows up on a prior page, but it actually shows up on page 4. But I guess it's possible you could be excluded that they'd want to exclude from some MLS, and you could note it there. So that's an opportunity. Line 34 is the listing period. So it shall start on some date at 11:59 p.m. It shall start on and shall expire at 11:59 on some date. So there's a beginning and start date. Note there that MLS rules state that all properties must be in the MLS within 72 hours of the executed contract, unless, however, you do any marketing, which by NAR standards, the clear policy states that it must be in the MLS within 24 hours. You would initial the bottom of page 1. And then going to page 2, line 3 is, I'm not going to read all that, but in essence, what you're putting in line 37 is the list price. In section 4, lines 45 through 59, you would want to read that. I'm going to go backwards on this one. So in line 54, calendar days, that is the terminal period. So that is if you procured a buyer during the period and during the terminal period, and they buy, you would still be entitled to commissions. I always coach something between around 90 days is appropriate. Due to the sake that this video is forward-facing or public-facing, I am not going to talk about line 46 through 48. It is self-explanatory, but it does allow for 3 things. It allows for a dollar amount in 46. It also, in line 46, offers a percentage. And in line 48, it is a fill-in-the-blank for a dollar amount for the items listed above, which is technology, administrative support, additional commissions in the amount of whatever. So that's where you would fill that in. Section 5, lines 60 through the bottom of the page. Again, I'm not going to get too detailed on this, but the best way to understand it is what you're doing in section 4, line 46, is you're stating a percent and a dollar amount, or just a percent. That is, it can be all encompassing or it can be added to. So what does that mean? When you go down to section 5, Section 5, lines 70 and 71 means that the dollar amount or the percent is coming out of whatever you saw up in line 46. So, and then line 72 and 73 would be, as you see here, in addition to whatever was in line 46. So whatever the percent is in 46, if you come down to 73 and put a percent, that would be in addition to. So in that case, you would have to add those up. That would be the commission that the seller is paying. So again, there's some like asterisks and footnotes that you'd want to read, but take the time to read over this section. Let me see if I had any additional notes. I don't. So that would address that. And then going to page 3, we're talking about section 6, which is lines 83 through 91. So this is a new section as well. This could go into the agent remarks of the MLS. Filling in this section is purely optional, but it is a point of discussion. So the seller is not required to make any offer of concessions. The seller can, however, offer concessions, and this is nothing more than a section where you're having conversations with the seller. And so in line 88, you might want to put some dollar amount to the buyer to apply towards the buyer's customary or agreed to closing costs. So maybe they want to address that up front. And then 89 might be something like the cost, some dollar amount for the purpose of a home warranty, or maybe you want to put some dollar amount for the purpose of any lender approved concessions. Maybe it could be something like that. So section 7 is the consumer guide. Of course, you're going to have that marked as has because it's required and should never be has not. Unless, of course, the seller adamantly refuses to sign it, then it would be has not. Dual agency, still the same. It's in effect. Dual agency would be required by the seller's and the buyer's consent before you can represent both parties. Section 9 is lines 99 through 107. And so in that section, that fill in the blank there is the seller further represents and warrants to the broker that there are no other persons or entities that have rights or possessions except for the following. So that would be exceptions would be what goes in there. Lines 108 through 113 deal with seller's content license. So the seller may provide content such as photos. So what this is doing is in the world where a seller may give you video or pictures to use, this is their way of saying, hey, I'm also granting you the licensure to use those photos. Section 11, lines 114 through 123, talk about fair housing. That has not changed in any way, shape, or form recently, so that still is consistent. Section 12, which is lines 124 through 134, which is the bottom of page 3, top of page 4. Lead-based paint is still the same, has not changed. Any home prior to 1978 requires a lead-based paint disclosure. Section 13, lines 135 through 145, there is something you mark on line 137, and that is does or does not have surveillance equipment. That would be something that the seller needs to identify. If they do have surveillance equipment, it is encouraged that they would not utilize this equipment during the marketing of the property, since parties need to be notified that this kind of equipment is in use. So that would be a conversation you would have with the seller. Section 14, which is lines 146 through 152. In performing services under this agreement, the broker may collect from the seller non-public information like financial, social security numbers and such. That's just saying that you're going to keep that stuff confidential. in section 15, lines 153 through 168. You're really zoning in on line 157 and 158. 157 says the seller does or does not allow you to put a sign in the yard, and 158 says they do or don't allow you to put a lockbox on the property. There's additional verbiage there, again, that you're going to read. And then in section 16, lines 170 down, there's an indemnification. The seller shall indemnify, defend, and hold broker and its affiliate agents and licensees harmless from and against any and all claims, demands, actions, losses, judgments, damages, including reasonable attorney fees rising out of the result of the broker's resulting from broker's reasonable reliance upon the seller's herein representations and warranties. The bottom of every page gets initialed, so there's initials on the bottom of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then on page 5 is the signature page. You're putting your brokerage in the top left, which is Remax Alliance. Signature is your signature. I grant you as an agent the opportunity to sign listing agreements, so I don't have to do those. And then the address of the office, the phone number for yourself, your email, date and time is only utilized if you're wet signing, because digital signature is not needed. It allows you to have 2 spaces for sellers to sign. If you have a third or more, you just would take blank space and fill those out appropriately. So I hope this has been helpful. Thanks and have a great day.